exclusively only for, assigned Boy Scouts or whatever we want to do. Because I just picture myself innocently saying, "Oh, this is great. It's on open land. Obviously, you can have a fire here." And then, the neighbors, for whatever reason. And by the way, why was he complaining? Is it just because people were there, or was it loud?
He never actually called in. There's people having a bonfire. 3 times he's called it in as a brush fire. And I don't want to make any accusations, but this actually happens quite a bit in town, where neighbors who just don't like whatever's going on call in brush fires or open burns on other people as kind of a punishment to their neighbor, that they use the fire department to punish people. I can't say that's what's going on for sure, but I've spoken to the gentleman once, and he knows exactly what's there. So.
And Rob, I completely agree with you. I think that the signage should be updated, but signage in and of itself is not going to stop folks from, doing what is essentially a reckless burn out there. It's not, but it could very easily be. I think Andy would agree with me that in the wrong situation, that could be a big problem out there.
If you do put a sign, though, this is Joe Mazza. If you do put a sign, though, then we're going to have to back it up with a series of rules, right, for permits and rules about burn, right?
Well, I think that I don't. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I think that if you put up something saying that a permit is needed to burn there, then you can probably fix it in the mix. I don't know what the permit process would be, but if it says a permit is needed, then anything other than a permitted burn there is going to be a problem, and we can kind of back into the other solution. I mean, the only reason I'm saying this is because the fire department's been out there. We used to have fires out there all the time, right? I mean, back there and in Bicentennial and everywhere.
Yeah, but and again, this is Joe Mazza again. So let's say we did put signs up and a process around permitting, right? It's not going to stop the potential situation that Andy was saying, that, what's the fire department, what do we reasonably expect the fire department to do? If somebody calls in and says there's a brush fire, they could say, well, yeah, there's a permit there, but is there really a brush fire or not? Who's going to make that determination?
So if somebody calls in a brush fire, we have to go out. It's no different than a fire alarm. If somebody cancels a fire alarm with no proper passcode, we still have to go check. We can't ignore any call just because it's that campfire again. We're not allowed to, and it'd be irresponsible of us to do it. So if somebody keeps calling in a brush fire, whether it's permanent or not, unfortunately we're going to be going out there.
I think for the time being, as Carl relayed the history, again, the idea was really for organized groups affiliated with the town, such as the Boy Scouts or Upbeat. I think for the time being, and nowhere else in any of our open space portfolio are people supposed to burn fires or camp. So I think we need to be consistent, at least for now, and if it's something to revisit or come up with fine-tuned rules, I would say maybe that's what needs to be done. But again, up until this point, we haven't heard any issues about this. So technically, they're not supposed to be out there, even though it's inviting with the fire ring or the pit that was renovated. So it's a potential issue. I'm just thinking of it from the town's liability point of view, and again, being consistent.
Michael?
Yes?
This is Mary Catherine. So I'm thinking, first of all, if someone were to remove the wood that's in that firebox, that's going to hinder anyone from just starting a campfire there. And then second, work on the signage that, and then, of course, this, I guess, would have to get approved with the town. The signage that would say, fires allowed by permit only. But taking away the wood to start with would kind of help in the short term.
This is Karen Pagliaro. I have a couple of thoughts. One is I don't think taking away wood would stop somebody because they easily can bring their own. But I think that if we are going to put up signage, we also need to be able to let townspeople know that the rules, so to speak, have changed. So it needs to be, broadcast, maybe a short thing in the Citizen letting people know, this is a wonderful spot. We want people to use it. It needs to be by permit only, or this spot is just for the use by and the different groups, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. But I think signage is great, but we have to get that communication out.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Again, we're not equipped to issue permits or monitor usage either. So keep that in mind. We can come up with wording for a sign here and there, but to get more involved and complex, there needs to be a little more thought put into this and logistics.
Yeah. This is Guy Hoffman, Vice Chair. Yeah, I mean, technically, we only approved or supported the cleanup, renovation of the building and location for the Scouts or other kind of organized youth groups, and we never did approve it for anybody else to really use it. And I think at this point, we should try to reinforce that aspect of it and leave the rest in, signage or, clarification that area is reserved for youth groups approved by the town only, and that's it.
That is a valid point. That's the way it's been. Yep.
That's the way it's been. That's all that we really voted on was, they did a great job with, and the town did too, as far as, taking care of the existing property that was there. What a difference and stuff, and to have that fixed up. I would hate to essentially go down a path where we're pulling the rug out from underneath the Scouts that did the work and we're told that they were going to be able to use it.
Am I allowed to speak as a resident?
Sure.
I would love if that there was a way to keep it or figure out a way to make it effective for residents and taxpayers and non-groups. Maybe not in that particular location, maybe another spot, because there are a lot of people in town who don't live on a farm like I do, who would love to, have a nice safe spot where they can have a little campfire and, like Carl mentioned, cook some weenies. I don't know if that's the location. I don't know what needs to be done. And obviously it's probably not a decision you guys are gonna be able to make tonight, but I think it's a great asset.
This is Carl. I agree. And there are spots in Berlin where you can camp legally, believe it or not. I believe there's a spot on the net on Lamentation where you can. But generally in Connecticut, campfires are prohibited along long distance trails and stuff like this. But so I'm going to leave Andy's comments because I agree with you, Andy. But I'm going to leave that comment just for a minute and say that I'm going to, for the first time in history, I'm going to disagree a little bit with what Karen said. I love her comments, but I don't think that we should put anything in any newspaper or any general advertisement that there was a good spot to have a campfire, but we can't have a campfire there anymore, because if we publish that, then everybody in the world's going to be out on sheer property trying to have a campfire. I think that we should my opinion would be that we should sign it, we should prohibit it, we should back into some regulations around it. I don't know how difficult that is at the town level, and just basically at this point prohibit it except by permit. Because people who are going to have campfires, you know, at Ragged or on Lamo or whatever, are going to have those campfires. But, you know, at this point, for liability purposes, and because we have obviously a concerned citizen on Blue Hills Road, just say you got to have a permit, and we're not going to issue any permits until we figure that out, you know, because the liability at this point is too great. I mean, Andy, how many brush fires were you guys at last week? So that's my point, and I'm going to shut up now.
Yeah, we've been to a couple, but also none of them have had the protections in place that this one actually has for once.
Well, I think, again, Carl put it very eloquently, and I think for the time being, my recommendation is we stick with what we've had all along and study it more, because there's too much liability to just open the doors right now. So if anybody else has any other thoughts on that, otherwise I think we need to move along.
One last thing. I just want to know who's going to police it, because just so you know, the call on Friday night cost the town almost $500.
Well, I mean, I guess that would be, I don't know the answer to that, because it would be that probably, as with other open space, the police used to police that with their ATV. But that hasn't happened in a very, very long time. So maybe there's some education with the neighbor to know, or next time you go up there, every time you went up there, there was nobody there, it was just burning embers.
No, all 3 times we went out there, there was a small party. The largest party was 4 people and a dog. Again,
so
they were very. When we
they're
went
not
out
supposed
there,
to be
they
there.
said, "Oh, I'm sorry. We'll help you put it out," and they left on their own. That was all that there was to it. But when it gets called in as a brush fire, that would be a South Kensington and a Berlin fire department call. It's a 2-company call, and because there is a per diem pay for the firefighters,
I get it.
The other night it was 15 firefighters responded to it because they happened to be available that night. So it does add up dollars. I do know that, much like I believe Maureen and Jim were involved in an email that I sent off to Micah Hearn last week. There's been one that the police started with the fire marshals and the fire administrator that we have in town. But the same thing, I believe the police are willing to go talk to the homeowner with whatever decision I believe you guys come up with, so that maybe we could have them reported a little differently than just saying a brush fire in the woods. Kind of be the eyes and say, hey, there's people having a campfire again.
I mean, that sounds like a good idea. And Maureen, maybe you can help with that. And Jim, I know how much you love signs, but maybe we can come up with some signage there about, permitted use only, fires, not permitted, and that sort of thing. We'll come up with something, at least for the time being, to try to buy a little breathing space.
I wrote down several of the phrases you guys came up with that
Okay.
sounded more effective than others, and more like you were in agreement with them. So
Okay.
I've written down several, a couple pages of notes already.
Good, thank you. Andy, thank you. I think it's going to have to be a combined effort here. It sounds like the email chain already, maybe the police would have to get a little conversation and let the homeowner know that the smoke they smell is probably not a brush fire, but can only go so far with that, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know how long he's lived there, and I don't know how long people have been burning. It's just, the 3 times that he's called, there hasn't been any leaves on the trees. So I think that's the difference.
Okay, I can't recall that we've ever had any kind of concerns or discussions like this before either, so.
I've been on the fire department 20 years, and this is the first 3 times we've been called out there for anything remotely like this.
Okay, so some local neighbors discovered the asset over there, and they're utilizing it. It's pretty much sounds like what it is. So maybe a little education has to go along, and we'll move from there. Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate the time and that you spent on this and educating us as well.
Yeah, no problem. If there's anything else, a couple of you have my email, so feel free to reach out.
Will do.
Have a good night.
Same to you. Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Okay, Jim, you got 2 more things? Can't hear you. You're muted.
So, can you hear me now? Okay, sorry. We're discussing the parcel on Woodlawn that the town owns, 67-acre parcel. It has a water tower on it. There's a potential for a future groundwater source there, like at about 2/3 or 3/4 of a million gallons a day. But there is some contamination issues with the groundwater, so there's no short-term plans to use the property for that purpose. And then, as we've seen the application for the 404 Berlin Turnpike project and their proposed donation of open space, kind of brought this property to light here. And again, so their proposed donation would be contiguous to it, but on the other side of the river. And we looked at, some of the other parcels in the area. There's another proposed project that's percolating along at 550 Berlin Turnpike, and many other multifamily projects that are nearby on the Berlin Turnpike. So we looked at, and some of the folks that were involved in these projects had walked on this property and suggested it might be a good place, or at least parts of it would be a good place for open space use. And there's the former you call it Sportsman's Pond back there, which used to be, I guess, a club and stocked with trout and everything in the day. But so that brought to mind, whether there's a potential for open space use. It's a large parcel. It's in an area that perhaps could use the open space, and again, the adjacent open space is proposed. So we started to explore that with Ray Jarima and the Water Control Commission. And Ray just started some conversations with the Department of Health, because it would, the idea is that it would still be maintained as a potential water supply source. So we'd want to have like a joint use with the potential for, with future restrictions, perhaps if the water supply is developed, but there's, again, no really plans to develop it. So we started that dialogue, and we thought, really the place that it ought to originate is with the Conservation Commission to have this discussion. And if you think it's a good idea to explore it, then we'll start the process. We'd have to do further investigations of the property and make sure it's suitable. There are some access issues because right now we only have a right-of-way from Woodlawn Road. And our access is from Berlin Turnpike, but we may also have access at the end of Woodlawn, where the written transportation is. So we have to do some more investigation, but we have to start someplace. So wanted to bring it up with the Conservation Commission and see if you think we should explore and attempt to try to get this parcel made available for open space.
Oh, thank you. So it looks pretty, looks like it has some potential. I know there's some issues there, water-wise, and access is always an issue, but nothing that we we can't figure out given enough time and money, I guess, right? So anybody have any questions here, or I know some of you are familiar with the parcel, so please,
This is Carl.
hey, Carl.
This is Carl. I looked at the parcel and I did walk it from Woodlawn Road at a certain point. I understand that at least part of what is called Sportsman's Pond used to be the Berlin Fish and Game Club, that area back a long, long time ago. The parcel, excuse me, the access that the town has from Woodlawn Road is really wet, and it's not optimal at all. And I'm wondering, Jim or anyone else that who can answer this, because I have not had the opportunity to walk the other area. Is it feasible? I mean, I'm all for preserving open space. This is something that's going to bring anglers in, and I'm the hiking trail guy, but I don't need it to be all about hiking trails. The question is this really going to be accessible, or is this just going to be a swamp?
Well, I guess, Carl, that's what we got to figure out, I mean, and again, there is an existing, there's an adjacent factory or whatever on Woodlawn where there's, a driveway and a gate. And certainly we could explore that access, as the parcels develop to the north, there might be potential access to the north. So, we got to do a little homework on it.
All right, so I'd be willing to make a motion to support that as open space, at least in terms of, like exploratory. But the caveat is that, I've reviewed it. I've looked at the aerials and the topographical maps, and it's really, really wet, and so, I mean, I guess that's good. That could be right. That could be like wilderness, like game refuge or whatever. But I don't know what the town is gaining vis-a-vis what the town is giving up by a parcel that's, next to the Britain landfill and the turnpike. And we already have Sportsman's Pond, which nobody uses at all. So that's just my thought. But I'd be willing to make a motion because I love open space.
Jim, is there any cost to the town other than maybe improvements to access or a bridge or bridges or something?
Again, we'd have to develop a use plan, but whether we want to develop parking or whatever the case might be, but at the base level, it would be essentially, little to no cost, and it could be a long-term project. Like Carl said, it's a lot of it that's wet. Are there potential for, is there potential for limited trails? I don't know. We have to do the homework and, develop a use plan, and then we can make a decision. But, we can't, and again, since we have this, potential to the north and we have a lot of housing going on in the area, I think before all that housing was potentially happening, it didn't really make sense. But now we're going to have a lot of housing in that vicinity. And if we can make an amenity for that, for that community, that's great. And, we show on the map, the vacant parcel, which, is owned by Metro Realty. So we can discuss with them getting access on that vacant parcel to the north, which would really give you connection all the way potentially to Fieldstone Crossing and the trailer park. So, I think like a lot of things we've worked on, some of them have taken many years, like to connect everything at Hatchery Brook and Bicentennial, et cetera. But you got to start with a plan, start with a vision. So we're starting today with the idea of developing a plan for that area.
This is Guy.
Sorry, Guy, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Carl. Yeah, it's a property. It's kind of interesting that historically it's been listed under open space parcels, and then I guess it became not so much an open space parcel when I assume when the town council made a decision to say, you know, they would decide what places were open space, and then we would be able to have, you know, our say in them. So at some point after 2001, it disappeared off of I think the town's listings and stuff for open space, but certainly in the 90s and report from Karen Pearson in 2001, it was listed as an open space parcel. There really isn't much to it other than the pond. You've got the sewer line that is the one really well-defined path that runs across the east to west across the top part of the parcel, and kind of filled in area around where the water tower, water storage is, and then a narrow trail that goes close, right on the property line, that brings you up to the sewer line. If we're going to open it up for as open space and manage it somehow, really the only not a feature of significance is the pond. And do we want to have it as a place for people to fish and boat and stuff? If so, maybe it should be parkland. If we're looking to have it service the people just in that area, because it looks like there's gonna be, you know, an overwhelming amount of development for housing along the Berlin Turnpike. I don't know what it gains our commission so much as far as having it as open space that we have to manage, because we probably have to manage it differently as a pond and fishing and boating, which we haven't done. You know, we're having a hard enough time with managing whether there's going to be a fire at
Right.
you know,
Right.
the previous discussion. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's much potential for a lot of other kinds of trails around it. So I think that what's out there for trails is probably most of what would be developed, and so it's really the pond, and we'd have to assess is the quality, you know, what's the quality of the pond, and what kind of asset would that be? Is it good enough to promote it as a boating and fishing location?
So this is Carl, and I'd like to kind of clarify that the sewer line that the guy is talking about is actually the old rail bed for the Berlin to Middletown railroad, right? So the Metavesta district took it over, and part of that line is now the main trail at the Beckley Quarry Conservation Area. So, you know, I'm kind of wondering, I hate to throw any opportunity for contiguous parcels of open space out, as is appropriate, you know, with the plan of conservation and development. And that was not that if I sounded like I was saying that, I wasn't. I'm just concerned that, you know, this might not be exactly, you know, this is not a great part of the swamp, right? That's why they pulled bricks out of there, and that it's still open. So, you know, if what Mr. Mahoney is saying, that we will take this as a first step to exploring it, I'll be the first guy to make the motion. You know, Sportsman's Pond, I think, has fish in it. I think that, you know, my son went fishing there. He pulled some fish out of there. It's just difficult to get to. And if we could make that more accessible, I'm not saying it's ever going to be a boating location, but it may be a fishing location. And why the heck not, at least take the first step to exploring this, especially if it's along that line. This parcel's along that line that used to run from Berlin to Middletown. It's a hardened line. It's not going to be it's not going to be a linear trail ever because it's been superseded in this place. But I would hate to throw out the opportunity. I just don't think it's a great opportunity at this point. That's all I'll say.
Thank you. This is Michael. They're all good, well points, but I think as Jim said, this is a long-term project if it ever comes to full fruition. So I think it's worth it to take that first step and let's see where it goes. And yes, it will bring, if the town is successful in developing it, it will bring different challenges than what we've been used to because of the pond. So, but that's further on down the road. If anybody else has any questions, please speak up. Otherwise, I think I would like to follow along what Carl suggested or promote it as a motion. Any more questions for Jim or Carl? Carl knows a lot, so does Guy. No? Carl, you still there?
This is Guy again. Yeah, I don't mind taking a look at the potential and stuff. Is it what's needed to really do that though? My understanding is that this is under town council authority, this property. Do they have to do something before any kind of move is made that brings us towards potential of having it be returned to open space property?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Rob, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we've kind of, Maureen and I, had a preliminary conversation with the town manager, just kind of exploring the idea. Again, talk to Ray Jarima at the Water Control Commission. Right, as I said, right now, I think the primary use from the town perspective is potential water supply. And so, the first step was come here. If you want to, if the Conservation Commission thinks we ought to pursue it and investigate it, then the next step would be go back to water control, and they'll have some conversations with the State Department of Health. Let's see if it's even possible. And then if we get, positive signals there, eventually we'll go back to the council and say, give our findings and then the recommendation that it be, a joint use property and take steps from there. But we'll, report to people along the way. So this not a quick process, but, just a little back and forth. But next step, I think, is, if conservation's on board with exploring, then I think the next step is back to water control and have them weigh in on it and talk to the Department of Health, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. And just to reiterate or clarify, the status of the land right now is just town-owned property. It's not open space. It's not a park. It's what is exactly the status?
Yeah, I think that, to a degree, you can look at the plans and how they were designated in the plans, of POCDs, but I don't think that, some things were misclassified at times, but I would think, my opinion is that it's, it's under control of water control. They looked at actively, at that water source in the past. So I think, it's really right now town use, water supply, and non-open space.
Thanks. Well, I'm for it, but so anybody else feel strongly the other way?
So what we'd be doing is proposing a motion in support of exploring the use as a potential open space property with or without town water supply?
Yeah, I
That's
think, yeah,
pretty much,
at this point with water supply, more likely, but yes.
yeah, that'll always be there, so it could always revert back, but I think as you said it, Joseph, is pretty well put. Would you like to say it again in another format?
Let me try. I didn't write that down. I move that the Conservation Commission approve the investigation of the denoted land parcel, town property as potential open space in concert with the water authority of the town.
That was pretty good.
Carl Lewis. This is Carl second.
Thank you, Carl. All in favor of the motion as presented? Aye. Opposed? So moved. Marlo, Maureen, thank you, everybody. Thanks, Jim. Jim, you got one more thing there on the Eagle Scout project?
Yes, so, as part of the POCD, and for a while, we've been trying to make a connection between Town Hall Complex and Percival Field. And there's a small stream there. So we have been kind of talking to Eagle Scouts along the way to see if anybody would be interested in building a bridge there. And this year, by chance, of course, the town we actually bid a project to renovate the fields. So it seemed to be a year that we wanted to try to focus on that. And we have a Boy Scout who is undertaking to try to build a bridge at that location. And I think Maureen's got some plans maybe, but at any rate, basically at this point, just wanted to bring you up to speed on what's happening and tell you that, as with some of the other Eagle Scout bridge projects, which are really more complex and costly and involved and need more approvals, et cetera, than other type of Eagle Scout projects. In the past, we've provided some support for funding for materials. So I'm asking the council to provide, again, $800 in support from the fee in lieu of open space for materials for this bridge. And Scout Caleb still needs to get, approval from wetlands, and he has to get approval of the bridge plans from the building department. But this was an easement that we had negotiated with the housing authority a long time ago. So we need that easement to connect Town Hall Complex and Percival Field. So we're building it at a location that's in the easement area. And the easement basically would be to the north or to the right of Marjorie Moore. So we're basically trying to keep traffic out of their backyard. There's an existing kind of informal crossing that's kind of in the middle of the backyard, let's say, of Marjorie Moore Complex. This would shift it to the north, create a bridge and connection. And then, in the future, we'll work on improving the walkways. But once we get the bridge, I think we can have some momentum to get this thing done. So hopefully the commission would generally support this, and the idea that we're going to spend $800 again, as we did with Brent Catan on that project in Bicentennial Park not too long ago, which was a fabulous project.
Well, I know we always supported the Eagle Scouts because they're supporting the town, and as Jim had said, these projects are a lot more complex than we would all think. A lot of coordination with the different agencies or commissions. So kudos to the Eagle Scouts for getting that through. So you're looking for support and a motion from us to support the use of $800 from the fee in lieu of fund.
Yes.
That's out there. Sounds like a worthwhile project and it encourages walking, which is always a good thing. People get out, so.
Yeah, and I think we've been doing a lot of sidewalk improvements also, and we have more projects that are coming down the line. But obviously, we've got the sidewalks going up to Town Hall and sidewalks on the other side going into Carbo Lane. So if we can connect those through, through Percival Field, I think it'd be great for, people in other neighborhoods to have an easier way to walk to the library. And, there's a lot in people, the Housing Authority is trying to build another senior housing project at, at the Knights of Columbus property. So, seniors could walk from one complex to another. There's just a lot of good reasons to want to have make that connection if we can.
Sounds like it's a worthwhile use.
Mr. Carl, I agree. I totally agree. It's about the best thing we could do.
If I may, I'll just add that many of the town employees go for walks as a break during the day around the neighborhood or whatever, and I'm confident they'd enjoy the extra ability to walk off the roads as well.
It all sounds good.
I'm sorry, this is Joe again. So the field between Percival and the town property there, what's the status of that field?
Oh, there's the town soccer field that's part of, yeah, and the town had developed a plan and gone out to bid earlier this year to, to renovate the field. And we had developed as part of that plan, an alternate to create a walkway around the field that would connect into this location. And then all the bids came in much higher than they expected. So Parks and Rec is going back to the drawing board, and I think they're going to probably go to the council and ask for additional funds and then try to put it together and rebid it.
And from memory, there's a path that people use already at the end of the soccer field down that way anyway, correct?
Right, and that's what I'm talking about, let's call it informal path, but it comes out right in the middle of the back of Marjorie Moore. And this would be to the north, so we wouldn't be going through people's backyards all the time. Formalize it, but, also give them more privacy.
Anybody else have any questions? Anybody have a motion?
Does this map help at all for anyone? Here's the Percival Fields. I think Jim will have to give a little more direction, but I think this is the area that
Right, that's the area, yes.
the bridge would be constructed.
Good.
I'm getting reasonably good at this. Not great, but I'm okay.
Right. You can see on the, there's that one lot that's very, let's say, diamond shaped on the end of the cul-de-sac, so we have to go around that. That leads to a little bit more difficult bridge location from a construction point of view, but it is what it is.
Do anybody want to entertain a motion? Yes. Well, I guess I can make a motion then. I make a motion that we approve the plan for the Eagle Scout to utilize the funding for the materials from the fee in lieu of open space for that bridge for the walking trail.
Rod Ramsey, I'll second it.
Okay.
Thank you. All in favor of that, the motion as I stumbled through it there?
Michael, this is
Aye.
one,
What?
town council, can I do a roll call for this one, please? I think that would be appropriate. Michael DiLorenzo,
Aye.
Tom Heisler,
Aye.
Guy Hoffman,
Aye.
Carl Lewis.
That's an aye, and let me just say, it was a beautifully worded motion, and I've never heard Michael make one before. I'm out again. Bye.
Joseph Mazza,
Aye.
Caroline Goldberger,
Aye.
Robert Ramsey.
Aye.
Thank you. That's all
Thank
the
you.
consent.
So moved.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, Jim. Thanks for participating.
Nice visiting with you. We're starting into the POCD, so I'm sure we'll be seeing you again soon.
Oh, it's that time already. Man,
It is. It is.
time is flying. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Hey, Maureen, so now we're heading, oh no, I guess you're gonna want to do the garden first. Boy, all right.
If we can possibly have a really, hopefully short conversation about the garden, it would be great. We have gotten a really good response, although there are still a couple of spots available. Most of the gardeners are returning. Unfortunately, that opening and closing dates were actually established at a previous meeting. I talked to Steve Wood about opening. Given the weather we've had, we're thinking, you know, an opening fairly soon. We've gotten a lot of inquiries for prepping the gardens, et cetera, coming in from the gardeners. But I did want authorization from the commission before we told them they could officially go in. We understand a few gardeners have already gone in. I also believe Bill Jackson has been doing some of the prep work already as well as expected, and working with Steve Wood to do that. Can we let the gardeners know that they can start using the garden at any time?
As you said, I think a lot of them have been using it already. The returning gardeners, they're already in there. I mean, I know we talked with Steve about April 15th as a target date, I think it was, but unless anybody's got objections.
I would like to round it out to say this Friday, you know, starting this weekend, as opposed to suddenly the, you know, flood doors open and we have to get that email out tomorrow. It gives us the extra 2 days to get the email out.
Okay, that's fair. Anybody have any questions about that or
This is
concerns?
Karen. I do have a question. This is Karen. In terms of people starting, have they all gotten their plot numbers so that somebody doesn't go in and start on a different plot and it's not their plot?
These are the gardeners that have already, you know, registered for their plots. Yes. Yes, and then there are still a few open plots. And along with that, last year, I believe the date was November 1st for the closing, with adjustments being discussed around that time period, depending on how the weather held out or how the season held out, but actually closing up the garden for November 1st, if that's okay as well, so that we can let people know that for their planting schedule and late season items.
Sure. That sounds about right. I mean, yeah. I think you're good to go with your targets there, Maureen.
Okay, thank you. And then the next thing is that while Bill Jackson has been great, I really appreciate all that he has worked on and done, and he has continued to work on the well, and whenever that needs fixing, etc., options and all that, of course, down and say he could not provide the services of being coordinator this year. He kind of fell into it by default, I think, for the last year or two. So we're looking for somebody to be a coordinator. The town staff just doesn't have the time, and I think that's not the way the garden was established in the first place. It was supposed to be something that the logistics of the garden itself, the coordination of the gardeners, the work sessions to get the common areas up to snuff and weeded, and all the other items that are part of the garden were intended to be done. It's supposed to be self-running. is my understanding of everything I've read about the garden when it got established. So, where I'd like the commission to, indicate if anyone has any leads on someone that they feel would like to participate in the garden, like to volunteer and be a coordinator, would like to act as the liaison to the town. We do, the department does handle the finances for it, the acceptance of the applications, administration, and things like that. When the garden was established, we merely took those in and made the deposits and whatnot through our finance department. Everything about the garden was handed off to the coordinator. Over the last several years, it's become more of a function that Fran in our office has taken on a little more bites each year. Some of it because the first coordinator, created the system. So she had the system. And that never translates well to a new person, but we just don't have the ability, and we're not in the garden. We're not around the garden. We're not there on weekends either. So if anybody can know someone in town, that would be phenomenal. We don't have a coordinator right now.
Right, and if anybody, I think Maureen distributed the list of the people who signed up so far. If you can look at that, if you know any of them, maybe they could be talked into helping out. And again, a lot of this is, I'm not saying it's on autopilot, but there's not a lot of new things trails to blaze with the garden. Everything's pretty much established. And it's really just being a central communications point, because once everything gets started, the only things we ever hear about is, there's a hole in the fence, or somebody abandoned their garden. Can we take over their plot? Or we need more wood chips or mulch. That's about it. It's not that demanding. Or something, the well needs to be looked at, or the pump needs to be fixed. And again, a lot of times it's just an email relay to, Steve Wood at Building Ground, or through Maureen. And they're very responsive and things get done. So it's not
It's Carl.
not a heck of a lot. So please keep
It's
your
Carl. Let me just.
Go ahead, Carl.
I'm sorry, Michael.
Go ahead. No.
Part of me said if it was that easy a job, we wouldn't be losing coordinators as often as we do. And the other part of me says, we're all volunteers. One thing that might help, and I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but one thing that might help is to say to the gardeners, who are all, there's not a whole lot of shrinking violets there. The community garden is an asset that they enjoy, and perhaps, without any disrespect to them, they're some of them are quite demanding when it comes to the community garden. Maybe you got to step up, or the community garden isn't going to happen, because it's something that does need to be coordinated. It does need to have active participation. You can't just be a gardener. You have to, for example, help police the common areas and stuff like that. So, it really should be up to the gardeners to step up. And we've had a fairly decent problem keeping coordinators. That's all I'll say.
This is Karen Pagliaro. May I add some of my thoughts to this as well, considering I was the coordinator for maybe 6 years? So I think that the coordinator's job is going to be a little bit easier, because the biggest part was giving people, like getting the checks, going to Fran, and assigning the plot. So if that part's done, it will make it a little bit easier, because that's like the hardest part. And I agree with you 100%, Carl. Some of the gardeners can be a little bit demanding. You might get a complaint, well, so-and-so is putting this in, and that's not allowed. They're not supposed to plant, at one point you couldn't plant zucchini, believe it or not, in the garden. But the other questions, I have some questions, but I had identified 2 people or a couple and one person who I thought may be good. I just don't have the bandwidth to reach out to them because I'm working so much, so I apologize. And again, too, I would take this over if I wasn't working the amount of hours I'm working right now. But there's that 2 people that are a couple, and it's actually Gail Bates and the Damianas. Maybe either of them could take over. And it's really having a phone number or an email that they can email you and ask questions. And it's not a hard job, though sometimes it can be a bit daunting because of some of the complaints that you might get. But I will say also the town is really great with the follow-up and how quick they respond. And again, I'm sorry I can't do it. You know, there's always next year, and but I just can't do it right now. Maybe somebody else can hop in.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. Thank you for the insight there. And we know you have the experience, and we know that you are working very hard with the vaccination program. So Maureen, I think what we got to do is we'll come up with an email. I think we should broadcast an email to the gardeners first, asking just what Carl suggested. We'll word it nicely and say we need somebody to step up and help out. And you know, if that doesn't work, maybe we'll have to put we can post it on the town website, like you said, that little square there, and then you know, there's always the Berlin Citizen. We can do something too. So we'll work on that one.
I appreciate it. And to add insult to injury, Fran is going to be out of the office for approximately a little over a month coming up, which means that she's also not here to field those extra calls that result in the gardeners not having a coordinator that they can reach the town to. Instead, what we found is each gardener calls myself, Fran, Public Works Department, or Steve Wood, and we're all getting calls, and we're all often getting the same call to then figure out how to solve the problem. So a coordinator is important in that regard. I also think that it has the experience that I've had with the coordinators moving along is factors in their lives that have moved them along. I have not gotten major complaints from the coordinator with regards to it being an unrewarding job or anything. Not that I've heard it's rewarding, but you know, not a complaint in that regard. They've indicated
Right.
that.
I think you're right. And Maureen, I think all the more reason we had that discussion about coming up with a dedicated email. And I think people have to know, I mean, staffing levels and COVID restrictions, you know, you may not get a response right away, and that's just the fact of life. So, you know, people need to know that too. So, you know, as we've always said, that we appreciate, you know, what you and Fran do there on a daily basis with the garden. So thank you. We'll work on getting some help.
Thanks.
Okay.
We'll do that. I just
Thank
wanted
you.
authorization and input if any of you had, you know, maybe one of you was chomping at the bit. Thank you.
Well, I'll work on them. So Maureen, as we go through the plans, if you'd be kind enough to use your expertise, and if you know which ones have pertinence to have attention by us, our commission, and which ones don't, if we can just move through that list like that, that would be helpful.
Sure. What I had planned to do was just kind of give you the littlest synopsis I could of each one, with the anticipation that you may, on any number of them, just pretty simply be able to determined that that the Conservation Commission had no comment with regard to the application. I do want to just note a couple of things about the items as they're listed. The P&Z agenda dates are not all accurate. Fran put the earliest available date on the routing sheet that she sent around and therefore on the agenda, because based on their submittal dates, that doesn't that day. If I can correct those dates as we go through, for the few that I know have been corrected, I can. We did have an influx of applications over the last couple of weeks. I was on vacation and then working remotely through the quarantine, and some of the plans I've barely looked at other than the pre-application meetings that I had with the applicants. But because your next meeting may be after some of them are scheduled with P&Z, affords you the opportunity. And we're also taking a stance in general with regard to routing that plans, as much as practical, are going to all the places we generally route to, all the different departments or commissions. And because it's up to that commission to tell us whether or not they have no comment and it's irrelevant, or not applicable to their board or commission or department, rather than us making that judgment call for all of you. So that's why there's so many on the agenda that I think previously we may not have had so many. And I can adjust that system if you guys so choose. Okay, let me share the screen of the posting of the applications if I can, so that we can scroll through it as we go. If you give me 1 second to pull it up on my screen. Again, changed screens a few minutes ago. I believe it's this one. Agenda. So the first, are you seeing it clearly? Please tell me if you're not. The first is the proposed amendment of Tim Sullivan to amend section 6C2, special design district special permit uses. The public hearing is just being scheduled for public hearing this Thursday with an anticipated date for May 20th. The SPD zone encompasses the Golden Triangle to the south of Route 9 and the east side of the Berlin Turnpike. The text amendment is to allow uses that would be similar to other uses allowed on other portions of the Berlin Turnpike in the BT1 zone that are excluded from that particular small section of the turnpike that's zoned SPDD. One of the uses is stores and shops for personal service, and the other is schools for profit, including studios of dance, photography, and graphic design. So that's the wording. As a use issue, these would be on developable parcels or already developed parcels. Identify it as a conservation commission concern, noting that if it's a use that's on a parcel that is not developed, the development of that parcel would come through the whole review process of site plan and special permit review process if necessary. So this is just a matter of the uses allowed in the zone. So I think for each item, we need to know if the commission has comments that I should share with the Planning and Zoning Commission, or if you have a consensus of no comment.
Well, unless I'm mistaken, I mean, on this, I would just say no comment, right?
Rob Ramsey, I think this is out of our purview, isn't it?
I think so.
Nope, that's no comment. Okay, the next is for Gary Jacobs at Berlin Auction Group, a shed at 1660 to 1662 Berlin Turnpike. This is at the south end, it's on the Berlin Turnpike, just south of where Worthington Ridge.
Yeah.
It was established as an antique shop a couple of years ago, and now they're looking to install a shed to enclose some storage area, have some enclosed storage area behind the parcel, behind the existing building. The parcel goes back quite a ways here. There is wetlands to the rear. There's this drainage right of way that goes through the parcel, and due to the septic, we just received this revised plan that snugs the accessory building closer to the existing building than they had originally proposed in order to keep it from the septic area. So it is within the buildable area of the lot. You know, the setbacks are being met, to the best of my knowledge. Again, I didn't look at the entire revision yet. Just got it today, I think, maybe yesterday.
I don't think this is within our purview either, Maureen.
Okay. And then we have, the next one is Kiev Kai Properties, if I say that correctly, at 239 Christian Lane. This property is on Christian Lane across the street from Forest Machine, just north of Brescia's Industrial Park. There was a house there that burnt down perhaps a year ago. I don't really remember how long ago it was. Time flies when you're having fun. But now this is a proposal to develop that property with an industrial use. It had been a non-conforming residential use. Make improvements to that property for I believe it's an 80 by 125 foot building with associated improvements on, I'll say, a substantially flat lot. This is the Brescia development of, you know, several industrial buildings. This over here is Forest Machine. Here's Precision Punch just north of that.
Again, unless anybody I don't think there's anything there for us either.
Told you I'd try to get this as concise as I could. I know it's a lot to deal with in one day. This one, again, a developed parcel. It's what we commonly call the Orsini project at 224 to 250 Berlin Turnpike, where they're building the new. Now this is amendment to the site plan that they have approval for the mixed use project. There's the commercial building is substantially built. There's a detention basin behind it or drainage area. And then as you move towards Episcopal Road, they are approved for some residential multifamily units. This application will alter parking and drives as they go around, parking and loading as they go around the rear of the building in this area, and is shown on this plan. This is the plan. I think it's page 3 of 3 that probably has the most to show you, but they'll be making a modification. And that's my understanding from a pre-application meeting is to facilitate practical and actual use of the loading area in a responsible manner and still allow traffic flow as you go around the building and some connectivity. Again, not really a substantial change from a conservation standpoint. There's no conservation areas. It's the developable portion of the already approved for development portion of the parcel.
Right. I think that's the same thing with this one. Nothing there.
For some reason I tapped my pen. I'm sorry. Okay, there we go. The next one is a little different. It's, I don't know why that's there. Oh, I know, because it's on a different page. The Tasca Ford. Tell me if I pull it up for you, please, or if you're still seeing the screen that you were just seeing. Are you seeing Tasca Ford on your screens? Or are you still seeing the screen I had on a minute ago? I can't hear you.
Yes,
What's up?
Tasca, that's Tasca.
Okay, good. Thank you. So Tasca Ford wants to expand their building and site. They're on Woodlawn and Webster Square Road at the corner. Some of you may be aware that there's a water course or drainage that goes through the property. They've obtained the property at 73 Woodlawn up here that is subject to contamination. And what they're proposing to do is to build in here, keeping the parcels separate because of the contamination, isolate the sites. However, the new commercial truck building would be adjacent to this area, then so they have to do some improvements to that. I know they began the process through the wetlands during March. I don't know the outcome of that since I was on vacation. But here you see the new building. Here's the existing building, Webster Square Road, Woodlawn Road, new parking areas up all along Woodlawn. If you go that way, you'll see they already have significant trucks parked there. And they'll be building, they are proposing to build this new building here. They're anticipating they may be on, there's a possibility they'll be on the the May 6th P and Z meeting, but more likely May 20th. So there is another opportunity there should be another opportunity after I have more information on the proposal to bring it back to you if you have concerns. Again, substantially developed parcel already.
Does anybody have any questions on this particular project?
Ramsey, I'm thinking maybe if we table it until we get more information, like she was saying.
Here we go. Let me blow up into here for a second for you. I don't know if we can see enough. I couldn't find the original PDF having been emailed to me, and I would be able to blow it up better. And I did send a message, but I didn't get an answer as to where it is as far as wetlands goes. So, yep, we can do that. Table that one. Or
Talk about it next month.
you may have.
Okay.
Should I go on?
Yes, please.
I thought I'm sorry, it's Joe. I thought the minutes, when I read it, I was just trying to find it, said that their application was approved in March.
For wetlands? That's what I wasn't sure of the outcome for the wetlands meeting. That must have been wetlands. Right? Is that what you're talking about?
It was wetlands. It's in the package that was posted on the site. It said it was approved with conditions.
Oh, there we go. It's probably in here, and I had to just put everything up as I could. I'm sorry. So let me scroll back. Here it is. There we go. I'm sorry for that. Approved with conditions. I don't have the letter. I don't think. Oh, maybe we do. Here we go. All erosion and sedimentation control devices be installed.
Standard.
All construction-related activities be installed in accordance with the specifically titled plan. And all aspects of the proposed wetland mitigation in the northeastern portion of the property prior to issuance of the building permit.
Yep, routine. Anybody else have any questions? No? Next, Maureen?
Back to the other screen. Again, this is one I expect you probably won't have comment on. It's for an accessory dwelling unit in an existing home on Blue Ridge Road. They're just converting a portion of the home. They will be, they do anticipate putting on an addition, but it is substantially, developed lot, the end of a cul-de-sac,
Yep.
and they're
Okay.
not going outside their lot. So as I said, I'm anticipating you'll have no comment, but you tell me.
Keep going.
Oh, that one was 7. 6 was the Italian Political Club has a special event craft fair, again, in their parking lot of their pretty much completely developed lot on Harding Street. I don't imagine any comments. on
Nothing
that.
for us.
Yeah. Accessory dwelling unit, then we have the next application, which is a recurring application each year for Keystone Novelties to have a fireworks sale
Yeah.
on the Berlin Turnpike at 550 Berlin Turnpike, right in the area we were just talking about the open space being behind it, the potential open space area to the west of it. Again, a recurring occurrence.
Right. Yeah, nothing for us there.
And the next fair list of events, they have a yearly review before the Planning and Zoning Commission. This year they have 3 new events. One is a one-day fitness event where they're expecting less than 250 participants. The next one is the Berlin Fire Department comedy show with less than 200 attendees. And the third being a draft horse event to be held in the existing rink or the cattle barn if the weather is inclement.
Very good.
Last on the agenda, if you would, I think you added it. I think I asked you to add it and I think you did. Priority LLC. And this one, unfortunately, may be on the May 6th agenda. I don't know that there'll be the opportunity for it to be heard by TMZ after, or rather the commission, your commission to see this again. But this is for Priority LLC to construct 2 buildings on the property that was where the greenhouses were on Orchard Road behind Pierre Bennerup's property, next to the equipment supply store at the corner of Orchard and the Berlin Turnpike store, equipment supplier, the not Cat, it's Volvo. No, what is it? I don't remember the name of it. And they're looking to put in 2 new buildings. One is anticipated for the Priority LLC's occupancy, Priority Electric, I believe, being a contractor shop, and the other with a similar use based on our pre-application meetings. Again, this one, we haven't gotten to the review of this yet internally, but based on their pre-application meeting, they're focusing their development towards Orchard Road to maintain the significant natural buffer that extends to the west and north to the abutting residential properties specifically on Tollgate Road and Orchard Road. And that's the crux of it. Let's get to plans. Looks like I have to. So this is the parcel. Here's where Orchard Road meets the Berlin Turnpike. They've already had some discussion about moving the driveway somewhat with to align better or create a better intersection. And these are the two buildings, one being here. You currently come in to the property, and greenhouses were all in this area. This is the equipment supply next door. And then the elevation changes, as well as it's fairly well wooded. They do have access out to Tollgate Road, or rather a strip of land out to Tollgate Road. And that includes, I believe, the sewer easement goes out that route, that they did not intend to do any improvement to, and commercial uses must, and industrial uses can't utilize a driveway out through a residential zone regardless. You may have more questions. I'll do my best to answer.
It's Guy Hoffman. That wasn't zoned residential?
No, the zone line is right here, along the property line. If you give me a half a sec, I'll bring up the zoning map on it.
Wow.
Yeah. Down there. So this is the property we're talking about. You can see where the greenhouses were. Again, the buildings will be roughly in that location here. Sorry, my mouse is sticking. And there. And the zone, I don't want to get the zone wrong. We had it. It's PI2, Planned Industry 2. You can see the zone line goes right around that property. But the access, they do have this access strip out to Tollgate Road.
Yeah, like you
But
said,
again,
that they can't use that then.
Right, and they won't be using it. They indicated they would not be using it. There may be a pack currently during, he thought of several options with regards to that, but none that include development by him.
Oh, okay. I was surprised that there's property on Orchard Road that is not residential.
I think it might actually be a Berlin Turnpike address. If not,
it's not on the Turnpike. It's on Orchard Road.
Well, it really is on Orchard Road, but and yep, they go the PI2 goes all the way up behind the properties along the Berlin Turnpike. Here, if I turn on the other layer, it's much easier to see.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to clarify. I'm surprised. I'm surprised at that. That one was included like that. And they've already cleared the trees out to redo, I guess, where the driveway is going to be.
Which was substantially already clear from the greenhouses and whatnot. There were trees cleared for sure. I noticed that last night, but it was also had been the many greenhouses on that section of the property. As you can see on this map, you can see the surface area that was disturbed previously. That's what the darker gray is. The darker tan.
Okay. No comment. I don't think from us.
Yeah, I would agree.
years. This is greenhouse, as the greenhouses were in 2016. So pretty much that whole area that they're proposing to develop, you can kind of see it almost fits the same outline. And no comment on that either?
No.
All right. We did that pretty efficiently. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Maureen. All right, does anybody else have anything they'd like to add? Comments, questions, concerns? About a motion?
Motion to adjourn, Carl Lewis.
Rob Ramsey, second.
All in favor of adjourning the meeting at 8:19? Aye. So moved. Thank you, everybody. Maureen, thanks for walking us through everything. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Maybe
Thank you,
next month.
guys.
Maybe next month, are they thinking about in person or it's still on hold?
Oh, okay, so I would like to just give everyone that little bit of tidbit of information. We were hoping that we could move to in person this month, but I think the numbers ticked up at the end of last month, and so we kind of got asked to try not to meet in person. Again, I'll reiterate, meeting in person will be somewhat dependent on meeting room availability for the distancing protocols, but we're also going to be moving to a Zoom platform instead of WebEx. So we'll send out the instructions and everything with regard to joining that way if you can't be in. Well, it'll probably have to be next executive order or legislative decision says. We are expecting something hopefully by the end of the week that tells us what kind of meetings we're allowed to have. But the assumption is we're going to be told we can have in-person meetings, but they also have to be available by remote access. That's our expectation. So the remote access will be by Zoom.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Stay tuned. Always changing.
Yes.
All right. Thank you again. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.